The message popped up while I was at work family reunion at Emily's beach house. Then my father typed, "Your beach house is perfect for the reunion. 24 relatives, 3 days. No question mark, no please, just an announcement." My mother added, "Fill the fridge before we arrive, and don't make a scene this time." I stared at the screen for a long moment, then my cousin Rachel sent clapping emojis. My uncle replied, "Can't wait to finally enjoy that rich people beach life." Rich people that made me laugh, because nobody in that group chat remembered who paid for that house me. Not my parents, not the relatives who disappeared for years me. I typed slowly, not happening. 3 dots appeared instantly. Dad replied first. "We already booked flights." Mom added laughing emojis. "We're coming whether you like it or not." Then Aunt Linda, "Don't be selfish, Emily. Family is family." Family, funny word. Especially from people who treated me like unpaid labor my entire childhood. I muted the chat, then blocked notifications completely, and went back to work. But my hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger, because they still thought they owned me, even after everything. Even after what happened 3 years ago, the beach house wasn't some lucky purchase. It was compensation, a settlement, blood money, and my parents knew that better than anyone. Friday morning arrived quietly, ocean waves outside, coffee in my hand, peaceful. Then my phone exploded. Dad calling. Again, again, again. I answered on the 6th call, before I could even speak. He screamed so loudly I had to pull the phone away. "What did you do to the house?" I said nothing. His breathing sounded wild, panicked. In the background, I heard relatives yelling, car doors slamming, someone shouting, "There's no code working." I took another sip of coffee, then finally asked, "What's wrong?" Dad almost growled. "The locks changed, the alarm went off, there's security here." I looked out my window toward the beach, toward the empty road, toward the peaceful morning they thought they had ruined for me. Then I smiled and hung up. The calls didn't stop after that. Dad called 12 times. Mom called 8. Then cousins started trying. Then fake numbers. Then voice messages. I ignored every single one, until Rachel sent a photo. 24 relatives standing outside my beach house, suitcases everywhere, children crying, my uncle sweating through his polo shirt, and my father screaming at a security guard. Caption underneath, "You've lost your mind." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee, because technically they weren't even at my house. Not anymore. 6 months earlier I sold it. Quietly, legally, completely, and bought a smaller place 2 towns away under an LLC nobody in my family knew existed. The old beach house belonged to a retired lawyer named Howard Jensen now, a man who hated trespassers almost as much as he hated noise. So when 24 strangers showed up trying to force entry, things escalated fast. My phone rang again. This time it was Mom. I answered calmly. "You embarrassed us," she screamed immediately. "You sent armed security after family?" I almost choked laughing. "Armed security? They had guns. They're security guards, Mom. You did this on purpose." "Yes." Silence. Real silence this time. Then her voice changed, that cold voice I remembered from childhood. "You think you're better than us now?" No, I didn't think that. I knew it. But I didn't say it. Instead, I asked softly, "Did you tell everyone the house was yours again?" Another silence, because that's exactly what she had done. My mother loved pretending my things belonged to her. When I bought my first car, she told relatives she helped pay. She didn't. When I graduated college, she told people she pushed me through school. She didn't. When I bought the beach house after the settlement, she practically acted like she owned it, even though she once called me a financial burden. I still remembered that sentence clearly. I was 16. Standing in the kitchen, Dad yelling about bills, Mom exhausted and angry. Then she pointed at me and snapped, "She's the reason our lives are ruined." Not my brother, not Dad's gambling debt, me. 3 years later, they tried taking my settlement money too. That was when I finally understood who they really were. And I never forgot. Mom suddenly hissed through the phone, "Where are we supposed to go now?" I looked around my quiet kitchen, then answered, "Not my problem," and hung up again. By noon, the family group chat had turned into complete chaos. Rachel blamed me, Aunt Linda blamed Dad. Dad blamed technical issues. Then Uncle Mark accidentally exposed everything. He typed, "Why didn't you tell us she sold the house?" The chat froze. I stared at the screen, smiling slowly because there it was. The truth. My parents knew. They knew the house was gone, and still planned the trip anyway. Dad immediately deleted the message. Too late. Screenshots were already spreading. Then Cousin Mia replied, "Wait, you knew?" No answer. A few seconds later, Mom suddenly left the group chat. Classic. Disappear when exposed. Dad stayed longer, probably trying to control the damage. Then he typed, "Emily is overreacting about private family matters." Private family matters. That sentence made my chest tight, because every horrible thing in our family was called that. Dad's gambling addiction, private family matter. Mom stealing money from my college fund, private family matter. My brother totaling my car and blaming me, private family matter. The hospital lawsuit, definitely a private family matter. That one changed everything. 5 years earlier, my parents forced me to work double shifts at Dad's restaurant while finishing nursing school. I barely slept, barely ate. One night after a 16-hour shift, I crashed my car driving home. I survived. The drunk driver didn't. And because the restaurant ignored labor laws and falsified schedules, lawyers got involved. Insurance companies, too. The settlement was massive. Not because I got lucky, because my body was permanently damaged. My left leg still hurt during cold mornings. I still woke up some nights hearing metal crushing. But my parents only saw money. I remembered Mom sitting beside my hospital bed whispering, "This could solve everything for us." Us, not you, not your recovery, not your pain, just money. That was the moment something inside me died forever. And now, years later, they still believed they deserved access to my life. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered carefully, then heard a familiar voice. Grandma Evelyn, the only family member I still respected. She sounded tired. "Sweetheart, your parents are stranded." I closed my eyes slowly. "Okay. They say hotels are full." I almost laughed. It was tourist season. Of course hotels were full. Dad planned badly because he assumed he could invade my property for free. Grandma sighed softly. "You really sold the house?" "Yes." A pause, then surprisingly she chuckled. "Good for you." I blinked. "What?" "They've been using you for years, Emily." That sentence hit harder than I expected, because nobody in the family had ever admitted it before. Nobody. Then Grandma added quietly, "Your mother told everyone the beach house was basically hers now." Of course she did. I leaned back in my chair, suddenly feeling something strange. Not anger, relief. The lies were finally collapsing on their own, and I didn't have to save anybody this time. An hour later, Dad posted a long message in the group chat. A full performance. "Family should support each other during difficult moments. Emily has chosen selfishness and cruelty instead." Cruelty. Interesting word from a man who once forgot my 17th birthday because he was drunk at a casino. Rachel replied instantly. "I can't believe she'd humiliate us like this." Then Aunt Linda added, "She always thought she was better than the family." I read every message carefully, calmly, because for the first time I wasn't hurt. I was watching. And once you start watching narcissists instead of believing them, you notice patterns. Nobody asked why my parents lied. Nobody asked why they invited 24 people without permission. Nobody asked why they assumed they could use my property. Because in my family, my boundaries were always the problem, not their behavior. Then a new message appeared from my younger brother Jason. "We should just go to her new place." My stomach dropped. Silence filled the chat. Then Mom replied, "What's the address again?" I sat upright instantly, because Jason knew, or at least he knew the town. Months earlier, he begged me for money after losing another job. I refused. He got angry, started digging into my life online. I never thought he actually found anything. Then my phone buzzed. Security alert. Front gate motion detected. I stood up immediately, heart pounding, walked to the living room window, and froze. 3 SUVs were parked outside my new house. Dad's truck, Jason's car, and Aunt Linda's van. I whispered, "You've got to be kidding me." Then my doorbell rang. The doorbell kept ringing again. Again. Then pounding started, heavy, aggressive. Dad's voice exploded through the door. "Open this damn door?" I stayed completely still. My heartbeat was loud enough to hear, not fear, just disbelief. They actually followed me here, after everything. Then Jason shouted, "We know you're inside." Of course they did. My car was in the driveway. Amateurs. I grabbed my phone quietly, opened the security cameras, and watched them from the kitchen. Dad looked furious, sweating, red-faced. Mom stood beside him with crossed arms like she was somehow the victim. Aunt Linda kept looking around nervously, probably worried neighbors were watching. Good, let them watch. The doorbell rang one more time. Then suddenly Grandma Evelyn stepped out of the last SUV. I blinked in surprise. She wasn't supposed to be there. Dad turned toward her immediately. "Tell her to open the door." Grandma ignored him. Instead, she looked directly at my camera, like she knew I was watching. Then she slowly shook her head. A warning. Something felt wrong instantly. My phone buzzed, text from Grandma. "Don't open the door." My chest tightened. Before I could reply, Jason suddenly walked around the side of my house, toward the backyard gate. I stood up fast. Then another alert popped up. "Gate tampering detected." I whispered, "Oh my God." Dad started yelling again. "You owe this family after everything we sacrificed for you." Sacrificed. That word almost made me open the door just to scream at him. Sacrificed what? My childhood? My money? My peace? Then Mom shouted something that made my blood run cold. "We should have let the state take you when we had the chance." Silence. Even outside, everything went quiet. I stopped breathing for a second because she didn't realize what she had just admitted. Not publicly, not in front of everybody. Grandma looked horrified. Aunt Linda literally stepped backward, and Jason froze near the gate. Dad snapped immediately. "Shut up, Carol." Too late. Way too late. My hands were shaking now, not from anger this time. Pain, because suddenly pieces of my childhood started connecting in my head. The weird arguments, the whispered conversations. The way Mom always treated me differently than Jason. The sentence echoed again. "We should have let the state take you." Then Grandma looked directly at the camera once more, and mouthed 4 words slowly. "She knows now." I opened the door, not fully, just enough. Dad immediately tried pushing inside. I blocked him instantly. "No." His face twisted with rage. "You don't get to lock family out." "You're not family," I said quietly. That hit him harder than yelling ever could. Mom stepped forward dramatically, eyes already watery, fake tears, classic Carol. "You're being manipulated against us." I laughed once. A short, ugly laugh. "Manipulated?" Then I looked directly at her. "What did you mean when you said the state should have taken me?" Silence. Real silence. Dad cursed under his breath. Mom's face changed instantly, like she realized the damage. Jason looked confused. Aunt Linda suddenly refused to make eye contact. Then Grandma Evelyn spoke softly behind them. "She deserves the truth." Dad whipped around. "Stay out of this." "No," Grandma said firmly. "Enough lies." My stomach twisted painfully. I already knew something terrible was coming. You don't say words like that by accident. Mom crossed her arms tightly, then muttered she wasn't planned. I stared at her. "What?" Dad rubbed his forehead aggressively, then finally said the sentence that shattered everything. "You were my sister's kid." The world stopped. Actually stopped. The ocean, the wind, everything gone silent. I blinked slowly. "I'm sorry, what?" Grandma closed her eyes, tears slipping down her face. Dad exhaled heavily. "Your biological mother was my younger sister." I physically stumbled backward. My hand hit the wall. No, that couldn't be real. Mom suddenly snapped defensively. "She dumped you on us?" Grandma glared at her instantly. "She died, Carol." Another silence. Another bomb. I looked between all of them, unable to breathe properly now. Dad spoke quieter this time. "She struggled with addiction. She died when you were 3? 3. I whispered the number again in my head. 3 years old. That's why nothing made sense. That's why Mom never looked at me like Jason. That's why every punishment felt personal. That's why I was always the burden, because I wasn't hers. Mom folded her arms harder. We took you in when nobody else would. I stared at her in disbelief. You spent my settlement money. Dad looked away instantly, and there it was, confirmation. Grandma whispered, "They took more than that, sweetheart." I couldn't feel my legs anymore. Everything inside me felt disconnected, like I was floating outside my own body. Grandma stepped closer carefully. "They lied about your inheritance, too." Dad exploded immediately. "Enough!" But nobody listened now, not even Aunt Linda. She looked terrified. Grandma kept speaking. "Your mother left you money before she died." I stared at her. "What money?" Dad cursed loudly. Mom suddenly pointed at Grandma. "You promised never to tell her." That sentence confirmed everything, every horrible suspicion, every missing piece. Real, Grandma looked heartbroken. "I promised because they said they'd treat you like their daughter." Then she looked at me. "They didn't." My chest hurt so badly I thought I might collapse. "How much?" Nobody answered. "How much?" I screamed this time. Dad finally muttered, 40,000. $40,000. Gone, stolen from a dead woman's child. Mom instantly defended herself. "We needed it." "For what?" Nobody answered. Then Jason spoke quietly for the first time. "Dad's gambling debts?" Dad spun toward him furiously. "Shut your mouth." But Jason already looked sick, like he was finally seeing them clearly too. Grandma nodded slowly. "Yes." I laughed suddenly, not because it was funny, because my brain genuinely couldn't process the betrayal anymore. The college fund, the settlement, the inheritance, everything they touched disappeared. Mom's voice became sharp again. "You still ended up successful?" That sentence, that disgusting sentence, something inside me finally snapped. I stepped fully outside now, looked directly at her. "You stole from a dead woman's child." Mom rolled her eyes. "Oh, stop acting dramatic." And that was it. The final piece. No guilt, no shame. Nothing human left in her expression, just entitlement. Then Dad suddenly pointed toward the house. "You owe us after all those years we raised you." I smiled slowly, coldly, then reached into my pocket and pulled out an envelope. Dad frowned. "What's that?" "Receipts." His face changed instantly, because he knew, he absolutely knew. Months earlier, after getting suspicious, I hired a forensic accountant. Quietly, carefully, every missing account, every transfer, every forged signature, found, including something even worse. I looked directly at Dad. "You used my social security number when I was 19. His face turned white. Jason looked shocked. "What?" I opened the envelope slowly, then handed copies directly to Aunt Linda. Credit cards, loans, tax fraud. All connected to me, over $90,000. Dad lunged forward. "Give me those." Too late, way too late. Aunt Linda flipped through the papers silently, then looked at Dad like she'd never seen him before. "These are real?" Nobody answered. That was answer enough. Jason grabbed another page, his face drained of color instantly. "You opened debt in her name?" Dad stepped forward aggressively. "I was paying it back." "You ruined my credit for years," I snapped. Mom suddenly yelled over everyone. "We fed you, we clothed you." I laughed again. "You stole over $100,000 from me." Neighbors were definitely watching now, curtains moving, phones out. "Good, let them see the perfect family." Dad's voice lowered dangerously. "You're trying to destroy us." "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed yourselves." Then I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Mom's voice echoed loudly from the speaker. "We should have let the state take you." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Jason looked like he might throw up. Aunt Linda whispered, "Oh my God." Dad stared at me in horror. "You recorded us." "Security cameras did." Mom suddenly panicked. "Delete that?" I smiled. "No." Then another voice interrupted softly. "You won't need to." A black sedan had pulled into the driveway. Two people stepped out, a man in a gray suit and a woman carrying folders. Dad immediately went pale because he recognized them. The lawyer spoke first. "Mr. Reynolds?" Dad said nothing. The woman opened a folder calmly. "You've been formally served." Mom blinked rapidly. "Served for what?" The lawyer looked directly at them. Identity fraud, financial exploitation, illegal debt transfer, and misappropriation of inherited funds. Jason whispered, "Holy shit." Dad looked at me with pure hatred now. "You called lawyers on your own family?" I held his stare. "You taught me family means nothing." That shut him up, completely. The lawyer continued speaking while handing documents over. "There is also an active investigation regarding forged tax records." Mom literally stumbled backward. "No, no, no." Dad grabbed the papers violently, then looked at me one last time. For the first time in my life, he looked afraid of me. Not angry, afraid. And honestly, that felt better than revenge. Grandma walked over slowly and took my hand. Softly, like she should have years ago. Then she whispered she'd be proud of you. I broke then, completely. Not because of the money, not because of the lies, because after my whole life feeling unwanted, someone finally chose me. And for the first time ever, I stopped feeling like the abandoned child standing outside the door. This time, they were the ones locked out.